Hola, I'm Jorge Ramos.
And I'm Paula Ramos.
And this is The Moment. It's been really, really interesting because the episode you're about to listen to was supposed to be an in-person interview with someone who has become one of the most prominent victims of the Trump administration's crackdown on free speech and immigration, Mahmoud Khalil. But just hours before he was scheduled to meet with you, Paola, in New York City, an appeals court opened the possibility for him to be rearrested. So, Paola, you were all set to talk to him in person, but on the advice of his attorneys, he opted for a remote interview.
Yeah, Dad, I think it was simply too risky for him to come meet me midtown. But I'm very glad that we got to do this interview with him. By the way, I think it's one of the first interviews he did after that breaking news. But for those of you that don't remember exactly who Mahmoud Khalil is, let me give you a very quick refresher. So Mahmoud was a Columbia University graduate student. He's one of the pro-Palestinian leaders on campus. He was detained by ICE last March 2025 on his on-campus residence. But here's the thing. Mahmoud was not undocumented, right? He actually has legal status, but the Trump administration keeps trying to deport him to another country. But the question that I have is what is the case that the Trump administration is trying to make, right? So one of the things that they're doing is that they're invoking this very obscure law that was originally created to monitor immigrants with communist ideology. And what they're now trying to do is essentially baselessly claim that Mahmoud somehow poses this quote unquote serious threat to America's foreign policy.
So that's one question, Paula. Another question is, what does the continuous targeting of Mahmoud Khalil tell us about the state of our democracy and free speech?
So what lies ahead is Mahmoud trying to answer that question. We have a very personal, candid, and vulnerable conversation where he opens up about his story, his background, what his role in Columbia University was during the protests, who he blames for his detention, and really what all of this means, this continuous and overshadowing threat of deportation, what that means not just for him, but for his young family, for his young son, Dean.
So today, Mahmoud Khalil.
Well, look, first of all, welcome to The Moment. Today, right, hours before you and I were scheduled to talk and to have this conversation, an appeals court suddenly reopened your possibility of being detained and deported again. And so I think before we begin and before we get into this conversation, I want to ask just how you're doing and how you're feeling today.
I mean, I don't know. Today's ruling, it's definitely very disappointing. It's dangerous as well. But at the same time, I don't think this breaks my resolve to continue my advocacy for Palestinian rights. It just shows how this administration is really weaponizing everything in its power, even not in its power, everything it can do to just to implement its policy of cruelty, of punishment, of to make an example out of me. And I realized that my case, it's just an example of what this administration wants to do or is doing now, in this country, to chill speech, not necessarily on Palestine. I mean, it's just maybe the tip of the iceberg, but on anything and everything that this administration disagrees with. And I have an American wife, an American son, both born raised in this country, so it's difficult that the possibility of being deported, not being with them, of separation, that it is now a little bit higher than it was before. Mm-hmm. And just to be clear, the judges or what the court, what's in front of the court is only the jurisdiction.
Yep.
It's not about the substance. And in fact, you can infer from reading the court opinion that they agree that this administration is taking measures against my First Amendment, my freedom of speech, that I did not do anything illegal. Yeah, they said just like the restriction that no one is supposed to look at this because like the government has its own processes, and then
Yeah.
there is a process in the Fifth Circuit.
I think no matter what the intention is, I think it's evident that part of it is about making you and others feel scared. No, it is to kind of deter you, obviously, from speaking. You and I were supposed to speak in person. No, you and I were supposed to be in this room sharing this mic. Are you scared right now to be out?
Not necessarily scared, to be honest. More of I know that this administration is lawless. That as of now, the status quo preserves. Like the administration are not supposed. It would be illegal for them to detain me, to target me, to do anything. Yeah, we know that this administration is pushing the envelope. That they even if they know that this could be unlawful, that they would try, and because they're not losing anything. And we can get into that later about how this administration is just like throwing spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks and what not, just
Yeah.
because there's no accountability. So it's just like sort of like to minimize that risk. But I mean, I'm in this fight. Like anyone in the Palestinian rights fight, they know that there's immense risk.
Yeah.
And I still consider myself of the lucky ones, the lucky Palestinians who are in this country, in my son's room, being able to speak to the world, being able to eat, actually, not a Palestinian, in the West Bank being subject to the terror of the settlers or the terror of the Israeli state in Gaza. So I'm breathing. So that's actually what.
No, you're right. You're breathing, and it's also true that the world knows your name. You have become an extremely quote unquote politicized figure, and I think a lot of our listeners know your story. I think some listeners know part of your story. Others have absolutely no idea exactly who you are. And so I would love to continue the conversation by really getting an understanding of your personal background, of who you were more than anything before March 2025. Who Mahmoud was before ICE came knocking on your door.
So I was born and raised in a Palestinian refugee camp in Syria, where my family was exiled from Palestine. Israel pushed them to Syria. So I was born and raised there. Then because of the Syrian war, I also had, because of my political activism in Syria against the Assad regime, I had to flee and go to Lebanon. I did my undergraduate in an American university in Lebanon, the Lebanese American University, and then. I had high hopes. I wanted to come here, continue my education.
You always wanted to come to the U.S.?
No, not really. It's just like it happened that, I wanted to come to Colombia to be closer to the UN. I wanted to be in diplomacy. I worked in Lebanon with the British Embassy in Beirut, working mainly on providing development programs for Syrians. So I wanted to advance myself. Also, I met Noor, who was on a visit to Lebanon to volunteer. So we both met.
You had to follow her, obviously.
Kind of. And really before my arrest, I was literally just a person waiting to start his job at the beginning of April, waiting also to welcome our first baby. Noor was 8 months pregnant right before I got arrested. And I consider myself, I did everything right. Like I came on a student visa. I applied for that adjustment of status. Like legally, everything was fine. It was approved.
Yeah.
Like nothing, like no hiccups. Like it went all good. And also a person who was seeing his people being massacred, genocided every day for about 2 years or over 2 years. So I felt that urge to speak out, like you're in America. Like I left Syria, a country that, there that you're not supposed to talk or speak up,
right,
because you will be punished. But you came here with the premise that this country is the land of the free.
Can I ask you, Mahmoud, did you really believe that? I mean, obviously the United States has such a complicated history in the Middle East, a violent history, coming to the United States, being accepted into Colombia, stepping into the soil. Did you truly believe that principle, that this was really the country of free speech?
I absolutely believed in that point of like just free speech. I mean, I was all my life in the Middle East. I was the subject of the U.S. imperial policy, foreign policy of like I was in Syria because like the U.S. is emboldening Israel. The same in with the Iraq war. Like I was always the subject of the brutality of the U.S. foreign policy. Yet I believe that there is this freedom of speech that like you're not doing anything really. Like you're just like speaking your mind. But I think from day. Or I think like day one, even before October 7th, before everything, I was shocked of the Palestine exception in this country. That there is democracy, but it's democracy of convenience. As long as it's convenient, there is freedom of speech. There is due process. There is democracy. But the moment that this starts to be inconvenient for those in power to the establishment, all these principles, they go like down. It's only like words on paper.
And in a way, you saw that firsthand. And that's why I want to go back to March 8th, 2025. But not to have you sort of relive that, but I think because particularly today, I think your detainment in that day really forces us to understand how much of a prelude that was. A real significant prelude for what has now unfolded into an even larger crackdown on immigration and free speech. And so going back to that day, March 8th, 2025, you're in your residence at Columbia University. Your wife, Nora, is 8 months pregnant. ICE is knocking on your door. Did you ever feel like something like that would happen to you?
No, not. I mean, I was so naive to think that, to be honest. And the week preceding to my detention, I can see like all these threats by shady pro-Israeli groups online, like calling for my deportation, all of that. But like, despite that, I did not feel that there is like high risk because I knew I did nothing wrong. Like I literally did nothing wrong. Like when I say that, I committed no crime, and even the administration, they couldn't find any crime to accuse me of. So I was, even when, I mean, I'm not sure if you've seen the videos, but I was so calm because I knew that there is misunderstanding, that the moment that they actually check or double check like the facts, I would be out immediately, not even, like spend the night there. Because I had strong belief in the rule of law. Like, I didn't do anything. Like even, in demonstrations and all of that, like it's like literally nothing. Like that's what, when I tell people, like I did nothing. I just like protested against the genocide. I negotiated with an administration to make sure that everyone is safe, everyone is heard. And what's, like even I did not ever thought that ICE would come because I'm documented. I have my documents. I was in Mexico literally a week before my arrest. I was like just like having baby moon with my wife going out. So there was no reason for me to expect that anything would happen. So that was like why I was so calm with them because like come investigate me. You wouldn't find anything.
And I guess and that's the question of why me. I'm assuming that obviously you were in detention in Louisiana for over 3 months. You had a lot of time to yourself, a lot of time to reflect. And I would imagine that question of why me kept coming up. Because to your point, you're obviously a legal permanent resident at an Ivy League, and you were not the only one leading these protests, right? There were so many people like you. So I'm wondering when you were pondering that question of why you, if you ever actually came up to an answer that satisfied you.
I think, I mean, the main reason is to make an example out of me. So it did not matter who the person was, as long as it's someone who they can make an example out of, so they can chill the speech in this country and show that they can do whatever they want. And there is the the fact that, they usually start with the weakest. They start with like, or undocumented, I would say, then go to those with visas, then with permanent residency, to eventually like go after. Now we're seeing them like they want to go after naturalized citizens.
Yeah.
They want to go after even, like the
Even U.S.
birthright.
citizens right now. We're
Yeah,
saying that.
even like those, like so it's not about like, but they wanted to start somewhere, and they were not even hiding it. They said that my arrest would be a blueprint to go after those who dissent. So they wanted to test their case, and they found me as, unfortunately, in America, that Palestine is that, like they consider it controversial, so they thought like it's an easy way to go after someone who's holding these views, because they can easily justify it using these all very, very bogus claims or bogus like theories. So that's their reasons, just like to try it. And then again, like a week after my arrest, they arrested another and then another. Then they expanded it to U.S. citizens. And it's not, and this has been happening even from before. Like, let's also be very, very clear about it. Like this anti-Palestinian sentiment in this country, for ages. They attacked like the BDS, the boycott and divestment and sanctions movement in this country, although it is free speech. They went after academics, Palestinian and pro-Palestine academics, for so many years, like before my arrest. So that was like just a natural, I would say, conclusion of that decades-long campaign against like pro-Palestine speech. But again, they had like, of course, like more to it, because their main goal is, like, we don't care if you are a permanent resident. We don't care if you didn't commit any crime. We will still be able to come after you and make your life hell. And that's the message that, unfortunately, was spread in country. Like now you have a lot of journalists fearing that they would be targeted. Not necessarily, because in my case they used the immigration as a weapon, and they're using different weapons to do that. But you have academics, you have universities, you have law firms who have literally capitulated to the administration. So it's all like part of that campaign of terror against free speech in this country and dissent.
And I guess knowing what you know now, knowing everything that you have lived through and the way that things are shaking up, when you think of the pro-Palestinian protests and the negotiations that you led and the movement that you helped lead, is there anything that you would have done differently?
The central thing, opposing a genocide, like, you can't do it differently. Like, you're opposing a genocide. You're opposing the use of your money, the use of your taxes, of your tuition fees. You're opposing that they are being used like to buy weapons to kill your own people. I mean, I can go at length like discussing with you the different ways, tactics of doing that. Of course, we could have built like more connections. We could have, like the students could have, I don't know, like worked better on the PR. But again, these are students witnessing genocide in real time. And you're asking them, they're asking them to be perfect, like to get everything, right. But for me, like the core thing of opposing a genocide, like, I would do it again. I never regretted doing anything. I would do it again and again and again and again, because I did not do anything wrong. Like, even when I think about it, and like, what could I have done? Like, literally, what could I have done differently when witnessing my people being genocided by my money?
I mean, do you blame the institution like Columbia University for laying the groundwork for your detention?
Absolutely. I mean, Columbia University laid the groundwork for my abduction. How so,
Mahmoud? Like how paint that picture for me.
So, Columbia, in so many ways. So even before October 7, I'm saying Columbia had very anti-Palestinian environment in the administration. Like, we wanted to bring Human Rights Watch to talk about apartheid in Israel, Palestine. So we're bringing a very reputable international organization to SIPA, the School of International Public Affairs. That's what you usually do. You bring, like, that's a very natural place for such an event to happen, or a lecture. Yet Colombia gave us a very difficult time to have this event because it criticizes Israel. So they treated everything about Palestine as inherently violent, that it is a threat, it is a risk. That's even before October 7th. Now, October 7th comes, and with all the rhetoric, the false rhetoric about, anti-Semitism at Colombia, or the rise of anti-Semitism at Colombia because of the protests, the administration fueled that that rhetoric. They even, like, the first protest that happened, I think it was like October 12 or 11. The pro-Palestine students waited 5 days to have their first protest at Colombia, and then the pro-Israel students wanted to have their protest, or counter protest. So Colombia literally put the pro-Palestine students in the East Lawn and the pro-Israel students in the West Lawn, as if they are facing each other, and they brought in media to to cover that. And they kept Columbia University, and with the trustees, mainly, Columbia, the trustees are individuals on the board of trustees of on boards or and directors of companies complicit in human rights violations, companies that they've benefited so much from the genocide in Gaza. Most of them are weapon manufacturers. So Colombia failed to first, to correct the narrative that this is what's actually happening. I would go, when I talk to the administration, I tell them, just say what's happening, that there isn't these anti-Semitism rhetoric or incidents happening. Just say that, protect us, basically just say the truth. And they wouldn't. They say, yeah, we know, but it's complicated, blah, blah, blah. Even with doxing, because the Trump administration did not do a spectacular investigation to unveil it was actors within Columbia University who were doxing their fellow students online, going after them, sending vans and these doxing vans to their homes, to their parents' work sites, to smear them and to intimidate them. Colombia did nothing about that.
To protect anyone that was a victim of that.
Yeah, literally, I've been emailing Colombia for 2 years, but even the week preceding to my detention, I told Colombia, you have these 3 individuals, Colombia students and faculty. They are doxing me. You have to do something. Radio silence. The morning of my arrest, I did the same. Same email to the president of Colombia, to the leadership, and they did nothing.
Can I ask you? You were released June 20th, right? So almost 7 months ago. Has the administration from Colombia reached out to you?
No, whatsoever.
No one from Columbia University since you were detained.
No, they even declined, or I would say barred me from going to campus to speak at events or even to visit the library.
So you, in this moment, you cannot go back?
I cannot. So imagine, I wanted to go just to the library or to see a friend, and then I can't. I'm barred from going. This is an institution that claims to protect its international students, to protect freedom of speech on campus. To be frank, Colombia is happy about what's happening. Now they have a person who they can, throw everything on. It's Trump who's doing that. But they have a person who's doing the bad job for them, and they can easily just say Trump is doing that. But Colombia wanted to do that. If Colombia had the power to detain and deport me, they would have done it a while ago. Let's not forget that Colombia expelled and suspended over 100 students. who now they have their futures literally like thrown in front of them. So it's not an institution that's neutral or that's supportive of its students. And again, as one of the professors at Columbia say, Columbia is just like that real estate empire that does education on the side, and that's what's doing now.
I'll tell you just, frankly, obviously, I went to Barnard College, right? And so I went to Barnard. I grew up, no, I came of age in that campus. My mom went there. My sister went there. And so, hearing you speak, and obviously I'm very involved on that campus, it's very disheartening, all of it. So thank you for, just sharing this in such a clear-eyed way. We're going to take a quick break, Mahmoud, and we'll be right back. I want to talk about everything that has happened since you were released, right? Everything that we've seen ICE doing on our streets leading up to the death of Renee Good, a U.S. citizen that was simply out in the streets and that was killed by an ICE agent. And that's one of many images that have gone viral online of hundreds of Americans, millions of Americans watching masked ICE agents act extremely violently. And to your point, right, it started with undocumented immigrants and it's now impacting U.S. citizens. And so understanding that you lived that reality, you yourself were inside of an ICE detention center, I'm wondering what comes up when you see those images and if you ever feel any sense of deja vu.
I mean, it's not deja vu. Like I'm living through it, to be honest. Like it's a living experience right now. Like the brutality, the cruelty, the retribution, the revenge, the dehumanization, that's happening through all these ICE operations, and it's. It's just like, to me, it's crazy because like I could see it like in one of my first letters I wrote that they will start with visa holders and green card holders, but they will come after everyone. And what's at stake is really is more than like immigration status. It's our it's just like it's the whole community and the whole fabric that makes America what it is. This is what at stake, and ICE is acting as a militia. They act extrajudicially and accountable to anyone, and that's why Trump and Stephen Miller are using ICE, because it was designed in that way that it would be without proper oversight. That they can really, like they don't need to get a warrant. They don't need to wear a camera, or they are allowed to wear face masks. So they knew what they are doing, and they're using it as this militia because, like, I don't know, like they will run out of immigrants to go after, and that's what happened in Minnesota. To go through after undocumented immigrants. So they're going after like documented immigrants. They're going after naturalized citizens themselves, and the just the abhorrent killing of Renee Good and a person who's out just to support her community. And they knew ICE that they are immune. There's impunity in this system, and that's how they're doing it. And the other part of it, I believe, is how this administration is portraying everything as a privilege. Because when they targeted me, they said, we conferred upon him the privilege of the green card, the privilege of coming to this country to study, as if it is their own privilege that they are giving it away, like out of the goodness of their heart. Like green card visas, citizenships are privileges of the law. and not of individuals. And this is what they're trying to do very, very now, like with the privilege of due process, with the privilege of freedom of speech, with literally every kind of thing that they want, and also to divide. Like to divide the community, us against them. You and me, they're trying to group people in this country into specific classes according to, for now, according to their status. Like
Yeah.
you are an American born, you are a naturalized citizen, you are blah, blah, blah. So they get them like against each other to eventually, because know that Stephen Miller, as he said, like he wouldn't stop his efforts until, like he goes after everyone who doesn't look like him.
Yeah, I mean, I think
and he was clear about that.
he's always been clear, right? I think Stephen Miller, since he was in high school, right? Since Stephen Miller was in high school in California, he was someone that was decades ago already talking about assimilation, and invoking the Great Replacement theory. But when I was hearing you speak at the beginning of our conversation, when you were talking about studying Columbia University, and sort of seeing the United States from afar, I sensed perhaps that there was maybe a little bit of faith, before you got here. And I'm wondering if you still have faith in that American justice system.
I had faith in a robust, at least domestic policies and rule of law. I did not have faith in America's foreign policy. I just like to be clear. But I had faith that that you have robust institutions, there is robust rule of law. Going through this experience, I can see how this administration can weaponize these systems to get what it wants. And there's a fundamental flaw in the system that this administration, whatever they want, the worst thing that can happen to them, like with the current framing, is a judge telling them, don't do it again or correct what you're doing. But they're not being accountable personally. Like, let's say I get vindicated through the court. The court would give me back my green card, but it wouldn't hold accountable those who strip me from, the birth of my son, who throw me in jail for 3 months and a half. So they will continue to do this because there's nothing they're losing. They have immense resources. They can go after everyone. And the worst thing that can happen for them, a judge telling them, no, don't do it again. Maybe they would tell them like, oh, you have to correct your mistake. So literally, like what we see is that the American democracy and rule of law are under threat, and clear threat. We're not approaching. They say that we're approaching. What is it called? Authoritarianism. So they say that we're approaching authoritarianism. We're not. We are in authoritarianism. Like it's already we're living it right now. Like the fact that you have all these injustices happening around us, that ICE is able to act the way they are acting, that DHS, it's not only ICE, like let's also like say, like with the health department, every single department in this country, the way they are acting, they're eroding the institutions in the United States. And what's more dangerous, they're creating a police state, because when you have hundreds of thousands of people dependent on the state, who are, in law enforcement, you're creating a police state. Because at this point, when you have so many people being thrown out of their jobs, and you give them $50,000 sign-on bonus to join ICE, they would.
Yeah.
And they would be dependent on ICE eventually.
Right.
And you're creating a full police state. And in 40 years, I don't think there will be like democracy left to save.
You really think that 40 years from now?
I absolutely believe like with the pace that Trump is going now, I think in 4 years there wouldn't be that democracy. It would, and he's proving us right every time, like with what he's capable of doing. I'm glad like there is like immense resistance, but not to the not to the level that's needed. What requires now, and my only faith is the midterm, to be honest, because let's not forget we're not 1 year into this administration yet.
No, we're not.
And and the world is upset.
Somehow we are not.
So imagine having 3 more years
Yeah.
of Trump being Trump without anyone checking his power, what he would be able to achieve through different means.
But
I hope I'm wrong. Like I really like I have faith that people are resisting. People are trying like through all legal means like to actually stand up to this administration.
I mean, I think that's why people want to hear from you, right? Because I think you're an example of kind of both sides of this story, right? Someone that is truly a victim of this authoritarian movement that we're living in, and also someone that is a reflection of a movement of resistance, right? And so I think that's why your words are so important. And I think on that note, Mahmoud, so I co-host this podcast with my dad, and he really wanted to be here today and talk to you. And he himself had a question for you. So let me play that for you so we can get your response on the other side.
This is my question. Just like you, I'm an immigrant. And I remember having my own vision of what the United States should be like for me and what this country stood for. And I wonder, what was your vision of the United States before you came here? And also, if that vision has changed now that the administration put you through all these very difficult situations. So what do you think?
Thank you. I mean, it's a difficult question. I mean, my vision is really like a place of refuge, a place where I can build myself. That what matters is the work that I do, the effort I put in, and that's the American dream. Like that's what we always hear about, like American dream. That you go there if you're good, if you work, hard worker, you study, you will make it, and there is certain basic rights that are guaranteed. They are not like conferred, or that these are guaranteed. And part of these rights are, of course, freedom of speech, rule of law, due process. So I came with that vision as someone who's ambitious to do good for the world, to do good for my own people, and to live with my American family and eventually become a U.S. citizen here. Now, has that changed? I still have faith, like that little faith, as I told you, earlier. If we survive the next 4 years or what comes after, I think it all depends on again, like that leadership that would suit the vision in this country, and whether we are able to oppose it. And this is why I'm still here fighting this case, because I have a belief that we will prevail. Justice will prevail, and this is why I'm continuing to litigate my case, taking it to every and to seek accountability, because I want to live in this country. I want to raise my child in this country, where he would be a proud American in this country, that this country actually vindicated his father rather than that this country deported his father because of his beliefs in human rights and Palestinian liberation.
I mean, I know you just mentioned Dean, right? Your son, who, as you said, and I think the country knows this, right? You were stolen of that opportunity to see his birth. He was born when you were detained inside of that detention center in Louisiana, and I have to tell you, perhaps because I know everything you've gone through. To hear you say that you want Dean to live in this country, as a U.S. citizen that he is, as the New Yorker that he is that where you want to raise your son?
Absolutely. I really want to raise like Dean in New York, in this country, in a country that would respect him as an equal person to everyone here, not as a special person, not as less or more than anyone else. I mean, the election of Zuhran, of course, was a positive development in that, like now there's that, like little light and the full, like, I don't know, blackness in this country. And I'm really like hopeful that, Dean will be able to live here freely, equally with everyone else.
I hear the hope in your voice, right? And I think that's one of the questions that I had for you.
We don't have any other option, unfortunately. Like, we don't have the luxury of just turn our back and leave, because they will not stop here. Like, because their problem is our existence as a whole, and they will continue to come after us until they bring their supremacist policies where they can subjugate us to their rule. And we can't let that happen.
Just my final question to you, Mahmoud, is when you close your eyes, what does home look like? And I ask you this because, of course, Palestinians have a profound history of displacement, from Syria to Lebanon to the United States. It feels like you've always been longing to go back, for a home, even when I've heard some of your interviews. So when you close your eyes, what is home?
I believe home is, I have in my living room an artwork by a friend of mine that says, "Home is where you find love and freedom." And to make it more practical, I really see myself like, or I see my home a place where I just live in dignity, justice, prosperity, equality with everyone, and that's what I want for my people and for other people. It's not like I want myself to be superior or have like special treatment or any of that. I just want to be able to live with my family, with the people around me, in a prosperous way, in an equal way, that no one would target me for my color, for my nationality.
Is that Dean crying?
Yeah, he's in the background.
He's like, "Daddy, you gotta go. Wrap this up."
No,
That's home. That honestly, how significant. Home is the sound of your son crying. I mean, that's what it is.
It's literally what's keeping me going right now. And
wow.
Like before the ruling this morning, I coincidentally, like I slept. I spent the night with Dean. Like we slept together.
Yeah.
It did not feel that difficult. Like in the morning when I heard the decision, because like I was in my home. Like with him.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Mahmoud.
Thank you, Paula, really,
we'll check in on you and go hug your son.
Will do.
The Moment is a production of Radio Ambulante Studios in partnership with iHeart's My Cultura podcast network. Our staff includes Daniel Alarcón, Laura Rojas Aponte, and Lisa Cerda, with help from Paola Leán, Diego Corso, Natalia Ramirez, and Elsa Liliana Ulloa. The CEO of Radio Ambulante Studios is Carolina Guerrero. Executive producers at iHeart are Leo Gomez and Arlene Santana. Pablo Cabrera, Dylan Unger, and Mark Catton also serve as producers. Sound design, final mix, and theme song by Elias Gonzalez. Our hosts are Jorge Ramos and Paola Ramos. If you like this episode, please share the word. Recommend The Moment to anyone who might enjoy unpacking these complicated times with us. If you like The Moment, pero también te gustan los podcasts en español, check out Radio Ambulante Studios. Our shows, Radio Ambulante, El Hilo, and Central are really worth a listen. I'm Miguel Santiago Colón. Thanks for listening.